You Do? The podcast that explores various occupations and industries and arms you with information about what that position entails and how someone gets that job. This show is for anyone who's ready for a career change or who's just entering the workforce. What will we discover today? Lean in and enjoy the show with your host, Chris.
Welcome to episode 2 of What Do You Do? The Career Podcast. In this episode, I interview a fellow Redditor named Wes, who is a digital sign tech. And I've yet to hear that job, but I see it every day, how we're moving from the, standard printed media to digital media. And it's pretty interesting. He tells a lot, and it was pretty educational. Before the interview, I had to go ahead and share a quote. It is, "A pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty," by Winston Churchill. All right, well, on to the interview. All right, I'm here with Wes. He's a digital signage tech. He found me on Reddit, or I found him, I guess you could say. And this is a job I've never heard of. I've seen them. They're growing. They're all over the place. It seems to be taking over your traditional ways of marketing. And it's the 21st century way of, I guess, marketing as well. So, Wes, would you mind telling me what you do as a digital signage tech?
Sure. I do a whole host of things. I'm kind of a jack of all trades. I do, my company likes to call it software development, but it's really just working with our software developers to make sure that the software they're provided to us works. I do computer hardware configuration. I do hardware configuration with other devices like video processors, and then get them to integrate with our computers that we're putting in our signs. I do network configuration. I do customer support. And then pretty much anything else that qualifies as geeky usually falls in my lap.
How did you find this job as a digital signage tech?
Well, I was working for this company, the sign company, as a CNC router tech for a while. And before that, I had started in the metal shop just doing, helper work. So just doing some welding, helping guys make the parts that they need, stuff like that. And they had this digital signage division that I wanted to be a part of because it looked far more fascinating than what I was doing. And I have a bachelor's in communication, the concentration in visual media art. And to be honest, I hadn't gone to college in order to just run a CNC machine. It's really cool, but it basically, it's all arithmetic. There's not even much algebra involved in something like that. So I kind of told them that if I didn't move somewhere within a year, I was going to look elsewhere. And then a little bit before that year went up, one of the guys who was in the digital science department decided he was going to leave the company and pursue something else. So I applied for the job, and I got it, and then things have kind of grown from there.
How long have you been doing it?
I have been doing digital signage for a solid 3 years now. So 3 years and a couple months.
Sweet. Can you give me an example of some of the digital signage that you guys might do?
Sure. We do a lot of different kinds of signage. So it'll run the gamut from little mom and pop shops like a restaurant or, maybe a church, something like that. They just have a single standalone sign that has, just some content that they put up. Something from that anywhere to huge, completely custom systems that have AV backbones in them, network backbones that we have set up. We have a set of displays in a convention center in a metropolis that is actually see-through. So we have columns of LEDs and with gaps through them so that inside the building, the sunlight still filters through the board, but then outside the building, it's displaying an image that you can see. And that one was a huge project. We've done casinos. We've got convention centers in a couple places. We have some in some malls. So we really kind of run the gamut. The main thing that we don't do is those billboards by the sides of the highways or any actual like highway signs that have been replaced by LED boards.
That's pretty much the same technology, though, that we're talking about, right?
Yep, it's the same thing.
So you guys just seem to be doing the business side. What is the average time frame for installation, or I guess it'd be planning to completion? It takes you to design it, build it, put it out.
Yeah, so it depends on the installation. Again, pretty much everything we do is custom, but we do have some kind of standard types of signs that we do. So if it's a sign that again, like a mom and pop shop has ordered, it takes us a little bit of time to design the board, get it made, get it shipped to us. So probably that process takes a few months. If it's a large system, then, you're looking at, 6 to 8 months, depending on how large and complicated the system has to be. Every now and then somebody gets lucky and we have an old board in stock that we can just sell. And then it's usually like a month or so because we just have to pull it out, get it running, and then, get it framed and installed.
So with you do installation, the configuration. It seems like this can be kind of a complex, a lot of different people doing a lot of different things to get the job done.
Yeah.
What's been one of the most difficult things that maybe you've encountered and then overcome?
One of the more difficult ones I had was we were installing a whole bunch of signs in an airport, and these were interior signs, and they were what we call a 4mm pixel pitch. So the pixel pitch is from the center of one pixel to the center of another. So a huge billboard you see might be like 50 millimeters. So we had these little 4mm displays. Well, I say little because the pixels were little, but the actual sizes were gigantic. And I spent about a week in Florida trying to get these things to work, and I was trying to configure the video processors on the back end. And what it came down to was we had boards that were wider than our outputs because these boards basically act like computer monitors. So if your computer monitor can output 1920 by 1080, and 1920 is as wide as it goes, and your board is 2400 pixels wide, well, then you kind of have to figure out how to overcome that limitation. We eventually got it using a custom resolution on the video processor that happened to be loaded and then worked. Another one I had was where this wasn't our fault at all, but we had spent 2 days installing this giant sign in a store in Mall of America, and we were all done. I was sitting in IHOP, giving myself what I thought was a well-deserved breakfast shortly before my flight, when I got a call that the sign had been put in the wrong place and it all had to come back down.
Oh,
And then, as I mentioned, I do a lot of the computer and content setup, and I have a coworker of mine who does a lot of the setup of the actual LED boards themselves. And he was gone on another flight, so I basically had to do what would normally be his job. No fault to him. He had other things he had to do, so he had already flown out before we found this out. So I spent another 3 days. So a 2-day trip turned into a 5-day trip. My wife wasn't super happy, but, it was fine in the end. And so we had to tear it all down, and then I had to reconfigure it and get it all back up.
Wow. What's one of the most important things that is the most appealing to you about this career? It seems like you're traveling a lot. You've learned a lot, it seems, from going from CNC to this. What are some of the things you like the most about it?
I do like to travel as long as it's not too crazy. I had 1 week where I was on a plane literally every single day from Sunday through Friday, and that got a little rough. But I really do like kind of traveling and getting to other places, seeing some other places, and working on the jobs there. the main thing is just to kind of keep learning and trying to keep up with the new and latest technology. It's always changing. I'm always finding better computers to do what we need, or trying to find some better software to do what we need, or better networking hardware. A lot of our signs are connected through 4G, so I'm always trying to find a better way to keep them connected and keep that connection stable. Things like that.
So you had a 4G connection, but would they also connect through like traditional LAN or Wi-Fi?
Yeah. So we can connect our signs through like Ethernet or through fiber. We have a system that is really reliable for using a couple Wi-Fi radios that we can connect to each other, that we can then send out to the sign. So one goes in the sign, and we connect the other one to the customer's network. And it essentially takes the customer's network and then extends it out to the sign, so then the sign can have an internet connection and things like that. Or we can
it repeats it out to it.
Yep. Or we can use a 4G connection. And then as long as that gives us a lot of flexibility, because as long as the 4G connection or the 4G signal strength in the area is good, we can put a sign pretty much anywhere we can get power. We're not limited by, the range of Ethernet or the cost of trying to run fiber for a mile and a half or, something like that.
With the travel, and it seems like maybe you can have long days. Is your friends and family pretty supportive of it?
Yeah. A lot of the times, I'm giving you all the highlights. So I have plenty of weeks where I get in, I work my 8 hours, and I go home. But then we do definitely get like these periods where, I'm working 50, 60 hours in a week, sometimes a little more. But, all my friends, understand, and my wife doesn't mind. She kind of is a little bit excited when I go on a trip, because then she has the house to herself. We don't have kids or anything, so it gives her kind of a break from my craziness. She's over there shaking her head at me.
Where do you see yourself in the next, say, 2 to 10 years?
For the next few years, I'm pretty happy where I'm going. Things are, I'm adding to my responsibilities, and things are going well. Work is generally pretty happy with how I'm doing, so I like the path that I'm on. So for at least the near future, I'm pretty happy with the path that I'm on. Really long term, I'd like to move up a bit, get a team doing some of the things that I'm doing, so we can really get some systems nailed down, and really get make some stuff that's unique to us that we can use to strengthen the product and make sure that things are really, really reliable.
So with this, you said earlier, you're always having to be on the forefront of technology, because, in the computer world, daily there's something new.
Yep.
Something new is coming out. There's new innovation. And it seems like for this, continuing education is one of the biggest keys.
Yeah, absolutely.
For the job to be successful, but not also the job, more so the company.
Yeah.
Be on top of everything.
Yeah, I've got some certifications I'm working on getting now, a bunch of IT kind of certifications, because that's kind of where my job is slowly morphing into, is kind of not straight up IT, but a lot of that IT kind of backbone. And I'm also looking at getting a couple other like technology certifications to basically prove what I know.
What kind of certificates do they use?
Well, I got a set of training for like the A+ and the Network Plus and security and cloud kind of certifications.
Yeah.
And then there's another one called CTS, which is by Infocom. It stands for Certified Technology Specialist. That's a really, really strong certification. It's the kind of certification that you can't just buy that. You can't get it unless you actually know what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm. So I guess the A+, Network Plus, and Security Plus would be CompTIA?
Yep, exactly.
Yep. Oh, that's pretty interesting. Does the industry have any of its own certificates?
The one I do have a DSCE, Digital Signage Certified Expert Certificate. But that one was kind of, you listen to it, you watch through the PowerPoint, and then you you take the test at the end. So it's a nice little certificate to put at the end, but there's no continuing education for it. So it's not hard to get. But that's the only one I am aware of that is specific to the industry.
That's pretty nice that you can use some of the standard IT ones to.
Yeah, I can grab those because a lot of what I do has to do with setting up computers. I mean, we have these robust computers that are rated for negative or 20 degrees Fahrenheit to 120 degrees Fahrenheit. That we put inside of the signs, because the signs are usually about 10 degrees or more warmer than the ambient temperature because of all the power supplies inside of the sign, which is great during the winter because it drops to 30, 20 degrees. It's still relatively warm inside the sign, but then in the summer it really bakes inside there. So I have to set those up, but then I also have computers that we set up for interior displays where power is more of a factor than robustness because we can just put them in a rack somewhere where it's not going to get all that hot. So I'm always doing that, and then, setting up the computers to either connect to a client's network or setting up a network for them to connect to. So all of that computer networking security kind of stuff is pretty pertinent to what I do.
Well, I'll tell you what, Wes, this is one of those jobs that I've never really heard much about. I've seen it, but I guess it's the men in the background that do this kind of job. And I really appreciate you taking the time to sit down and talk with me about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I did want to make a comment. You mentioned earlier that it seems to be growing, and it really is. For my company, my company has been in business for, I should say the company I work for has been in business for about 35 years. I think we're at 36 now. And 3 years ago, digital signage made up 10% of their income. And then the next year was 20%. And then the next year was 40%. And that's the kind of growth pattern we're looking at for just our stuff. So that industry is really taking off.
Yeah, I would say so. It seems to be more cost efficient and more energy efficient. Especially when you're trying to go green, the amount of power LEDs take to run is slim compared to.
Yeah, you'd be surprised though. It can take up a good bit. The LEDs you put in your house, they're not being driven very hard, and the LEDs we put in our signs, we drive them really hard. So yes, they are energy efficient, especially compared to message boards that use incandescent lights. But they do actually, we put signs up that require multiple 20 amp circuits for them to function.
Huh.
Yeah.
And plus, also, I guess, size matters too.
Exactly. Right. There's a very specific formula for the pixel density and then the square footage that tells you exactly how much it's going to take up.
I was never good at math, so that'd be a headache for me, I'm sure. All right, Wes. Well, I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks for listening in today, and be sure to subscribe to the show so you don't miss that one episode that can change your career path. We're passionate about sharing all the possibilities of occupations out there, and we'd like to keep moving full steam ahead. Consider becoming a patron of the show and go to patreon.com/whatdoyoudopodcast to see how you can support the show.